Welcome to Total CRM Bytes. Today we'll be covering customer voice. Customer voice can help you collect, analyze, and track feedback in an easy to use system. In this session, you will learn how you can implement this in your organization and connect with your customers in the moments that matter. Microsoft has put a lot of work into their survey tools over the past few years. Originally, we started with Voice of the Customer, which then evolved into Microsoft Forms, then Forms Pro, and now we've arrived at Customer Voice, which takes the best from all these iterations. To start creating a survey, open customervoice.microsoft.com. You will then have an option to create a new project. You are provided with some base templates to work with, and for today, I'm going to create a new survey from blank, and then next. You will then be required to select the CRM environment that this should be connected to. And in this situation, I am going to be selecting Great View. And now I can press Create. We now have the start of the survey, and the first step is to set up the name of the survey and the title. And today I'm going to be building a Total CRM Bytes feedback survey. Perfect. And I might also attach our company logo. So you'll see if you hover over, there's a few options here, and one of them is to pick a logo. And I might pick that one. Cool, so that's uploaded. Doesn't look great, obviously, because we've got the blue logo with the blue background. So now I'm going to start applying some styling to our header. And this is something that has come a long way through the updated versions, really being able to apply the stylings that you're looking for when you're creating the survey to make sure it reflects your brand. So maybe I'll press image, and you'll see that there's a group of ones that have been uploaded for you by Microsoft, but you can also add your own custom one if you like. So maybe we'll pick this one, and then if you hover over the text or the logo, you can choose where to move it on the page. So maybe I'll put the text at the bottom, in the bottom left, something like that. Again, you can make it look as pretty as you like, move it around. Like I said, there's been a lot of work done and to make it a lot more flexible in terms of the styling being used in that survey. So next up, it's time to add in some questions. And when I press the plus add new button, there's going to be 4 main options that appear. And then there's also under the drop down some additional options that you may likely use, but probably a bit less often. What you can see though is, and this is a really cool feature, is based off the title that I've given my survey, Microsoft has given us a recommendation of a question based off a past form that I put in another survey. Today, I'm not going to be using that. I'm going to get rid of that question. And the first field I'm going to add in is going to be a text field for the full name. And below the field, there's some additional configurations that we can use. I'm going to skip the add logic section for the moment, but what we could do is make this field a long answer or a required field, which could be used, for example, on fields where we're asking for extended feedback, some things like that. Under the 3 dots, we have a few more options. I could add in a subtitle, or I can add some restrictions, which for the text field, we could enforce things like users having to put in a number, which obviously we're not going to want in the case of the full name, but if you're looking for a number field, we can do that. Or we can have email address validation. So again, this can be applied, and these are the options that we have on the text field. But we're not going to actually apply any of that. We're going to leave the full name as it is. The next one we're going to pick, though, is going to be a choice. And what you're going to start picking up is under the 3 dots here, there's going to be some different options depending on the field that we're looking at. So now, since we have our option set, you'll see that you have the ability to automatically shuffle the options, and you might be using this to not influence the options people are selecting, as it'll vary depending, because what you'll often find is people will pick, the first couple of options more likely than the later ones. So that's to help with that. You could also make it drop down rather than displaying all of those options to make it a little bit easier to see and not extend the form out too long. Again, we're not going to have a ton of questions today, so I'm not going to apply either of those. But what I am going to do is I'm going to add in this field, and maybe this one's going to be asking what was the most interesting section of today's session. And I'm going to put in creating a survey, sending a survey, and I'm going to add one more option, viewing a survey. So a little bit of a sneak peek into what's coming up next after this part of the session as well. All right, next I'm going to add in a rating field, asking how interesting was this bite session. And then I'm going to do another follow-up text question asking, how could we have improved this session? Now, this is where I might start using some of the logic that I mentioned before. So I'm going to have this field only display by adding some display logic if the rating of our previous question, how interesting the session was, is below 4 stars. So you'll see there's an option there, show question if the response to how interesting was the bite session, and I'm going to say is less than 4. So that's now going to only pop up if we've got that lower rating on the previous question. And this one I actually might make as a long answer question as well. One other field I might actually add just up the top is I'm going to add in a new field, which is a text, and we're going to ask for an email address. And in this situation, maybe I'm going to add a subtitle and say something along the lines of, if you are not currently registered to Bytes, we will add you to the list. So we've now got that, and we're going to add we're actually going to add some restrictions there, and we're going to say this has to be an email address. So it will only display if there's a valid email address. And you'll see you get that nice little subtitle, and you can use that to make sure that you're getting the correct responses and provide some good insight around, what you're wanting into the details coming back from the submissions. Okay. Next question is going to be a net promoter score. So this is one of those ones that you may not use quite as often, but it's really good to start gaining some insight. And obviously this one being how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or a colleague? But I'm going to change us to total CRM bites. We've now got how likely are you to recommend total CRM bites to a friend or a colleague? And I might do one final question, which is going to be, how should we make inviting friends or colleagues easier? How can we make friends or colleagues easier? And again, this might be another long answer question that we're looking for as well. Perfect. So we've got all our questions, which is good. But one other area you may have noticed on the right-hand side is there is a collapsed menu for customization. And if I expand that out, here you can further update some details on your survey, like adding in satisfaction metrics based on questions you're asking, or adding in some personalization and branding to your survey. The other key section of note is the advanced logic. So if I click this, this is where it's similar to how we apply the simple logic. So we've applied simple logic before already, and that's what you saw on our question 4, when if we got the low score, we would then show the field, whereas otherwise it would be hidden if we did not have that score. And there's also the advanced logic, which actually puts it kind of like a advanced find that you would see back in CRM as well. So it's got that similar look and feel to if you were doing an advanced find or a view. But once you're happy with the look and feel of the survey, you can actually use the preview function up in the top right to see how it will look both on desktop. So you can scroll down and have a look how it would appear on the desktop, as well as a mobile view, which is really handy as well. Obviously, with a lot more people navigating through Outlook or to your form via phones now, it's great that they give this option as well. And you'll see it actually keeps it quite nice in terms of the design as well. An important note for customer voice is that it shouldn't be used exclusively for customer surveys. Another great example of how you could use this tool is for things like leave request forms or internal project completion reviews. So definitely open your mind and think broadly of how this could be used in your business. But now that I'm happy with the survey, I need to think about distributing it. I can change the tab, so we're now looking at the send options available. And you'll see that we have 5 really good options here. The first one being automation, which utilizes Microsoft Flow to automatically send a survey whenever an action occurs. So that might be something like when a lead is qualified into an opportunity, that the opportunity would be sent and asked, how was the initial process and do you have any feedback for us? The next one being a direct email to selected contacts, using code to embed it into a website, a direct link, or a QR code, which can be scanned by phones to open the survey directly. An important note is, if we use the top 2 options, automation or email, these will directly link through to the contact records back in CRM. Whereas the bottom 3 are going to generally be anonymous unless you add in fields where you can identify the submissions and then add some background flows to link that together. Another thing of note is the right-hand customization menu. It now has different options because we're in the Send tab rather than the Design tab. And the key difference is going to be the distribution settings. And you're going to see we get 5 new areas of things that we could update. So the top one, under participants, you can specify if only people within your organization are allowed to respond or not. Whether anonymous responses can be selected, whether you limit it to only 1 response per person, and whether you want to save invited participants as contacts. Now, the last one is probably actually the coolest, and another new addition coming through in the customer voice is you can now save survey progress. So if you have a relatively long survey that you're giving to either internal staff or external customers, they can now save their progress for up to 28 days and come back to it at a later date if they've run out of time. Next up, we have some restrictions on the responses, and we can have things like choosing when you'll start accepting responses and when you'll stop accepting responses, as well as a limit on the number. We also have the availability to determine when it will be live, what the email is going to be sent from. So generally, you're going to want to update it to be from your domain. So rather than surveys@emails.formspro.microsoft.com, which isn't going to be great, you would much prefer that your customer gets it from your organization or something that makes sense to them. So I'm going to pick surveys@greatview.biz, which is our company here. And finally, you can elect whether you get notifications when someone responds or when a survey's been submitted. So I might tick and say, yes, I want to get a response when a survey's been submitted. Perfect. So we've now completed the customization on the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is open the send email option. And from here, I can actually create a template which we can use some personalization details like their first name. So I'm going to go down a line here and I might say something like, hi, and then up the top you can do insight, personalized variables, and then first name. So we've now got, hi, first name, please click the following link to complete the survey. So you can start building up the template, again, making it a bit more personal for the person that you're sending it to, rather than it just seeming like a generic survey that's sent out to everyone. All right, what I'm going to do now is save that. So it saves my template that I filled in. All right, so now we're ready to send this email. And what I can do is in the recipients line, I'm going to type in the name of the person that I'm wanting to send it to. And this is going to give suggestions based off the recipients and based off the contacts we have back in our CRM. Perfect, there we go. Now we've got the full list. And I'm going to send it to jacob@totalcrm.com.au and then press send. Within a minute or so, this email will then come through to the email that I've sent it to. Now I'm going to jump across into CRM and have a look at my contact. And what we'll find is that an invite has been sent to fill out a survey. I can see that via, please fill the survey, Total CRM Bytes feedback. Once the survey has been completed, that will also come across onto their record. So now that I've got the email, I'm going to just copy the link in and I fill out the survey. We're going to be able to see those details back here on that contact record. Got our full name. We have our email address where we're also saying, if you're not currently registered to Bytes, we're going to add you into that list so you get the emails moving forward. And what you'll be able to see is it's asking you to enter a valid email address. So it is going to do that validation for you as you go. What was your favorite section of the Bytes session? I'm going to say creating a survey was my favorite. And then we have our one that applies the logic. How interesting was the Bytes session? So if I say it's 4 stars, nothing's going to happen. But if I say it's less than 4, you're going to see that next field pop up asking, how could we have improved this session? But I thought the session was excellent, so I'm going to say it's 5 stars and it will skip that step for me. How likely am I to recommend Total CRM Bytes to a friend or a colleague? I'm going to say extremely likely, love the sessions. And then finally, we've got, how can we make inviting friends or colleagues easier? Now, I'm not going to fill anything to that one. I'll leave that one up to all of you. And I'm just going to then press submit. And we get this nice form submitted screen, which you can also customize as well. That's down the bottom of the survey. And you can see that there with the post survey message and then the footer as well. But now that I've submitted that survey, I can refresh the contact record. And what you'll see is I now have that a response to the survey that we have just completed. And what I can do is if I open up that record, we're going to be able to see a breakdown of all of the questions that we got from that submission. So it's really good, and that's why we like to link it to the contacts, is because you can then drill down and see what each individual person's submission was and get some really good insight there. I'm just going to go back to our contact record, and a couple of custom extensions we could make to customer voice is to create a flow, which allows you to send the survey directly from the contact record under the flow button. And you'll see that's just under the 3 dots. We can put an option under there. And this will help save your users time by making it significantly easier to access rather than having to go across into the customer voice and type in names one by one. Another option is you can do stuff and send them via a customer journey, which has been another new update as well. So making it a lot easier to send it to bulk rather than having to click one by one on the records there. We could also have the survey response automatically update values on the contact record, depending on the responses that they have submitted. So if we've got some new fields in there, let's say, for example, we don't have their phone number yet, we could have it automatically link for you. So the phone number then gets updated on the contact record for you as well. The final point of call is I'm going to bring up the QR code here. And I would love it if I could have you all quickly fill out this new survey that we've created live today. We appreciate any feedback to continue making these sessions as good as we possibly can.